Welcome back to Open Line. We were talking about gun laws and guns in general with John Harris, President of Tennessee Firearms Association. We just were talking about a bill in the legislature that would allow guns on college campuses, and that may have generated some calls here. Let's go to Mike. Hello, Mike.
Yes, thank you. I'm an average citizen, and I feel threatened by the amount of the number of criminals that are using guns when breaking in homes, personal robbery, assaults with guns in public places, and when all of these types of crimes are aired on television, never does the news media support the victims. The spin is always the news media goes after the gun lobbyists, and they use bogus statistics, but in terms of the right of an individual to carry a gun, not at all identifying with the public's fight from the victims of gun abuse. Would you please address the problem of the news media skewing this thing so dramatically that the victims get lost in the entire discussion? Thank you.
Well, as a member of the media, I will allow you to address that. I think there are probably a lot of people that feel that way. What are your thoughts?
My experience, and I've talked with a lot of news people in the last 20 years, a lot. And I think there's a lot of news people who first don't embrace, because they haven't really been exposed to it, the gun culture. So they themselves are a little outside of the environment that the gun owners, the enthusiasts, live in. And what's interesting about that is I've talked with news people that are on the other end of the extreme. I can think of one I did an interview with recently that are very much the gun enthusiast. And so I think a lot of it comes from the experiences of the reporters that are involved and how they view the news and the light they see it in. And not so much that they've got an agenda, but it's just the perspective from which they're viewing it. Because, in Nashville, and I think some of the news in Tennessee, we certainly have it going both ways. But it's like with Channel 5 letting me come on a regular basis. It's very open dialogue. And, y'all don't tell me what I can and can't say.
And you're on, you obviously have a point of view, a strong point of view. So it's only appropriate to try and ask a question of that view.
Yeah.
You can certainly handle it. But what he says about how these things are covered, do you have shootings in general? If you watch our newscast, you're seeing a lot of those lately. We've seen a lot of those kind of things. I don't know. I guess I wonder if he feels like there's a way that those are being covered that would have any bearing one way or the other on the gun debate. What do you think?
Well, there's an example that's on the that Channel 5's covered in the last few days, and it's Nick Berry's story, I think, on the woman down in Murfreesboro or Smyrna that shot at the Walmart. Well, she didn't shoot. She pulled her gun at the Walmart in the parking lot. And, the way I perceived that story was it really didn't condemn or make a judgment one way or the other. It just sort of said, here's what the police said, here's what she said, she's been charged. And I think that's fair news reporting because those are the facts. Mm-hmm. Where we run into a problem sometimes, and I saw this a lot with the Tennessean, is where the report was more opinion than fact. It was the soapbox as opposed to the microphone. And I think when the news media reports the news and doesn't layer on personal opinion, everybody's better served. And I was a panel speaker over at Lipscomb earlier this year to a lot of their students that were interested in news and being reporters and writers and things of that sort. And that was one of the things that I tried to share with them was, if you're going to do stories in this world at this time on crime and gun owners and criminals, get your nomenclature right. Know the difference between different types of weapons so you have some credibility. And then try to stick to what the facts are and let the listener draw his own opinion as to what conclusion should be reached. But, put the facts out there and do a good job of investigating the facts and exposing the corruption if there is some. or exposing the problems if we got a bad statute that's leading to problems, but don't necessarily layer on a bunch of opinions with it. And I think there are news centers across the state, some that I've dealt with, that are guilty of that more so than others. But I think by and large, particularly here in Middle Tennessee, the news does a relatively good job of just reporting the facts. We got a lot of crime in Nashville.
Let's go to Reverend Fuzz. Hello, Reverend Fuzz.
Hello.
Hi.
Hey, okay. Let me throw a couple of thoughts in. This is a really helpful dialogue here because it's really complex. Yeah, I want to ask your guest a couple of questions, if he can answer them in a good way now. There's an organization called Moms for Gun Sense. That's an organization that was started after the shooting in Newton. And, they've been pretty active over the past few years here in Nashville. Why don't you tell us what you know about them, what you think about them? I've attended several of their meetings. They're a pretty good little network of people, who are getting involved in this. And as a matter of fact, I'm going to host an awareness meeting for them in my church on November the 21st so people can talk about these guns and this culture. I'm going to say as a pastor, I get to see that all kind of people have guns. Mm-hmm. People who are former members invite me to their house. I'm thinking the guy, they want to show me the gun that he just bought. Well, I remember one guy who said, listen, Reverend, look at what I just bought for my wife. This is a AR-14. I don't know about all that, but we grew up with guns, too. Now, I hear you talking about the colleges. My thoughts, but first, tomorrow is Veterans Day, and here's an old veteran. He's deceased now, but he told me something I always remembered, Brother Watkins. He said, Reverend, there used to be two sides to every story, but nowadays, look at this quarter and look at all the other sides to it. So be willing to hear different sides of a story. And it looked like there's a lot of different sides to this gun thing. Your guest looks intelligent, so he shouldn't just bear down, like you say, be so stern on one. But I'm okay with that, too. Some people are adamant about this. I'm going to say the Bible says that if you do evil, there are some crimes that you do evil, if you do that crime, they're supposed to put you to death or they take you out of the society. Why don't laws work that if people have these guns, and we always had them, but we never thought about shooting a person with that gun. You went to jail or went to death penalty for that. So why not say if you have these guns and you shoot another person, you're going to be, zero tolerance, put away for life or something like that. But
okay,
I'm just saying those kind of things. It's not the gun that kills folk. You've heard that.
Right.
It's the person with a gun that killed people. And then tell us some of these statistics, how many people getting killed. Good night.
Okay, Reverend Fuzz, there's a lot there.
There's a lot there. And I do agree with the Reverend that one problem that probably contributes to the escalation of violence is the fact that our criminal justice system, and maybe society in general, no longer has the stomach for capital punishment as a tool to rid society of people who have committed such heinous crimes that we shouldn't warehouse them hoping they're going to get better. We just need to get rid of them. That was in the Old Testament, that was in the New Testament, that's been part of this world until the last century. We're really one of the first nations, and a lot of nations do this now, that we really don't resort to the death penalty.
So, do you think that would really make a difference? Because a lot of states have the death penalty. Some of the mass shooters it's not like they're getting out.
Right.
Some are given the death penalty, some are put away for life.
Well, the death penalty is not going to help at all if it's mental illness, because those people aren't thinking rationally to start with. As a sociologist, and that was my degree in undergraduate, what we learned in criminal deviant behavior was that if you want a penalty, death penalty, capital punishment, long sentences in prison, to be an effective general deterrent, not a specific deterrent, not locking up that one person, but to discourage others in the population from committing similar crimes, that the penalties for the commission of the crime must be swift, certain, and effective. And the problem is we don't have swift penalties. We don't have certain penalties. I mean, you listen to criminals talk, they engage in the drug trade because it's unlikely they're going to get caught. And if they are caught, they're going to get a slap on the wrist. And they're only going to be in jail, if at all, for a small period of time. So it's just a calculus in the business for them.
Now, another question he had was Moms for Gun Sense. This came up after one of the mass shootings. And it's an organization that is advocating some changes to gun laws. Are you aware of that organization? That was his question. What do you
No,
think?
I'm not really aware of the organization. They may exist. I don't know what their platform is. I've not run into them at the General Assembly, nor have the members of the General Assembly that I deal with told me that they have been approached by an organization like this with legislation that they wanted me to look at. So I don't know, other than maybe talking in churches and in other areas, how effective they're being in terms of being an advocacy group to change the law.
So you're up there on one side lobbying the legislature. There are other groups, let's say that's one of them, that's on the other side. Who has the upper hand?
Well, the main groups that we see in Tennessee, oddly enough, you hear about, the Brady groups and whatnot. The main adversary to pushing forward gun legislation in terms of recognition of things like constitutional carry isn't coming from some privately funded group like this. The main opposition is coming from law enforcement, the District Attorney's Conference, the Sheriff's Association sometimes. It's coming from TBI. It may be coming from time to time, depending on what it is, from the Department of Safety.
Because they worry that it will lead to more violence.
Well, maybe not, but what they bring in, a good example. There was a bill that passed in 2014 that allows people now to transport firearms that they legally possess, loaded or unloaded, in a vehicle they legally possess, a private vehicle, and they don't even have to have a permit. So we've had that on the books for over a year now. And the main opposition to that came from law enforcement, not from a citizens group.
All right, we have to take a break. We have a bunch of people on the line, so hold on the line. We'll get to all your calls, take a break, be back right after this.